Bitcoins? Probably. I could put it in there.
Yeah.
Blu-ray.
Somewhere.
Oh
Where are the Bitcoins?
Where are the Bitcoins?
So we give it a couple of minutes here to get going. Video people.
Hello, video people.
This is Peter Wells, video people. You want to see more of him, support us on Patreon.
Oi.
Please do.
Is that racist?
No. Is it? Peter,
I
did I
The
just
song of my people.
I know.
don't
Culturally.
Yeah, I don't think
know.
it's fine. I don't know if Peter's fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I mean, if I started going full on like, Ozzy, oi, oi, oi.
This is a podcast. Yeah.
This is a podcast.
Crikey, look at this
Yeah.
beauty.
That's
okay,
not a
now
microphone.
we finally figured out where the line is.
No,
Now
it's
someone go
adorable.
tell
that
Night
that's
Attack.
cultural kind of, yeah. That's the last time we actually mattered to the greater world.
This is why we desperately need an international edition of
I know.
DTNS.
That's right.
Where?
There will be an international incident.
I still haven't gotten my next door. I'm feeling gypped.
Oh, man.
Post show.
All right. Post-show it is. Day Attack, Big Jim calls it. Where we mildly offend people without cursing. All right. So
All right,
just waiting for YouTube to catch up. And
I'm going to use the Force. What's
All
going to
right.
happen is I'm going to use the Force, and I'm going to magically disappear. And you won't be able to see or hear me anymore. Ready?
Whoa.
Wow.
Be mindful of your thoughts, Jenny.
Okay, so now that Jenny's gone, we can talk about it.
Oi.
DTNS wraps. Cute.
All right. I have a feeling it's going to it's got to catch up here real soon. So I'm going to get ready to go. Here we go. Come on.
What do you mean catch up? What is it doing?
Oh, it just takes a while for the API to kick the fact that we're live over to diamondclub.tv.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So API can be slow. APIs, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man, I know what you're saying, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Jeez.
Here we go.
This episode of the Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by me. If you'd like to bring the next episode to yourself, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support to be part of the show. Let's do this, Tom.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, January 15th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Peter Wells, who writes for the Sydney Morning Herald, podcaster on Reckoner.au, and prospective Day 6 DTNS host. How are you, sir?
I am very well, Tom. How you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for getting up early on a Saturday morning in your hemisphere to join us.
No worries, man. No worries. I've got a 5-month-old, so I've been up for hours. It's
You're
all
like,
good.
it's actually the middle of the day for you, or
pretty
or
much.
you're in some kind of timeless state, to be honest.
That's closer. Yeah, that's closer.
Yeah. I hear you have been recently mistaken for another Peter Wells, and I would like to apologize to you on behalf of the internet.
It's actually adorable. So yeah, every time that Peter Wells, New York Times critic, writes a new blistering review of a restaurant, I've got my DMs open on Twitter, which is probably a mistake, but I end up with like 50 DMs that day, either saying I'm the funniest thing on the planet or very, very offensive to that poor struggling $3,000 a meal restaurant. So I do apologize. I'm not that guy, but if anyone wants to pay me to go to New York and try that $3,000 meal, I will give it a shot.
Definitely. And maybe you should just start reviewing Melbourne restaurants just to cause further confusion.
Yeah, just like kebab shops and things like that. Yeah.
As you hear cackling in the background, Mr. Len Peralta is here, as he usually is on Fridays, to illustrate the show. That actually was more of a cackle. You really weren't cackling. Yeah,
That was a cackle.
Yeah.
Peter Wells, I always think that he's the guy from RoboCop. So
Well, he is the
Fair
guy from
enough.
RoboCop.
It's Peter Weller. That's the wrong guy completely.
Right, but he changed his name to Wells. Now you've outed him. Well done.
That's for dummies like me who don't really look at last names of people. They just said, "Oh, it sounds like that."
Yeah, my parents really didn't think about SEO when they named me, unfortunately.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's something that the modern family has to take into account. Well, we're going to talk about Foursquare's recent issues and just kind of use that as a launching off point of talking about, like, these got these hot companies like Foursquare that come along, like Foursquare did in 2009, and yet they stick around for a while, but then they don't become Facebook. What is it that makes us stick around with an app or a service, and what makes us not? But let's start off with some headlines. Android Police reports Android developers can now issue promo codes that can be redeemed in the Play Store for either a free download of an app or an in-app upgrade. Developers can give out a maximum of 500 codes per quarter, and no, they don't roll over into the next quarter, so you get 500 per quarter and that's it. Promotion codes can last up to a year, but devs can set expiration dates for them, or even pause the codes, something that iOS developers have been able to take advantage of for a while, and now the Android devs can too.
Yeah, a pretty decent little upgrade there for Android. And by the way, I saw someone mentioning that there's not enough Android love on this show. Well, I do own an Android device, so once again, support the show and get another Android voice on the show. Anyway, moving on.
A day
Ars
of
Technica.
Android. Yeah.
Indeed. Ars Technica reports freight forwarding company Flexport noted the U.S. Federal Maritime Commission has issued a license to Amazon China to operate as an ocean freight forwarder in the United States. The license allows Amazon China to organize the logistics of shipping goods to the U.S. by boat for itself and for other companies. Amazon has previously leased 20 jets and bought a truck trailer to add shipping capacity, which could also be used for the freight forwarding operation. And thanks to Flying Spatula for submitting this story to the subreddit.
Yeah, and Big Jim, who does tech and trade and is a big supporter of the show as well, and works in the customs industry, kind of nailed this. He predicted this. He's like, I bet Amazon is going to do something quite like this. And it does sound like Amazon is putting together, I mean, on the one sense, you could look at this and say, well, Amazon ships a lot of things from a lot of places. And so it makes sense for them to want to control those supply chains and bring down costs. But if you look at what they did with web services, they said, we have a big website and we have to develop technology to serve this big website. So let's start using that technology to sell to other people. And Netflix ran on Amazon Web Services, still does in part. Lots of companies run on Amazon Web Services and S3 and all of that sort of thing. And they built an entirely new business separate from the retail business out of that. It's possible, it seems like, that Amazon might say, well, we need to take advantage of all of this freight logistics help for our own supply chain. Maybe we'll build the Amazon Web Services of real world shipping.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy. It looks like I mean, this is very simplistic, but it looks like they've got their spreadsheet out and they look at what are their biggest costs, and whatever those biggest costs are, they're the things that they think, well, why don't we own that? Why don't we take that in-house?
And Big Jim's in the chat room. He says these licenses are a big deal, partly because they're very expensive, and Amazon hasn't built anything to take advantage of it yet. It's going to take them months to probably years to do that. So Big Jim's prediction is that they buy a few struggling forwarders that are already doing this to build up bulk so they can do it faster.
Makes sense. Ars Technica reports.
That's mine.
No, that's you. Go for it.
Mine. No, we had two Ars Technicas in a row. It's very confusing. Ars Technica reports security researcher Patrick Wardle has discovered that Apple has not fixed the flaw that allows attackers to bypass Apple's Gatekeeper feature. Gatekeeper stops files it doesn't trust. Wardle exploited packaged malware by putting it in with a trusted binary so that Gatekeeper just looked at the first file, saw the executable that is allowed, and passed the whole package through. Apple's fix merely blacklisted certain files to stop that, and Wardle has revived the exploit by using different files to get through the Gatekeeper. He'll present his findings at ShmooCon this weekend. Apple says it has blocked the new files, so those new ones that he'll present at ShmooCon don't work anymore, but Wardle alerted them to those and says and Apple says they're working on a way to keep Gatekeeper more effective. Wardle says, I have the way. I've created a proof of concept where Gatekeeper just notices that this is happening and doesn't have to have a blacklist, but Apple has not implemented that yet.
Yeah, a little bit worrying for me. I do look after some Apple computers at work, but I don't know. For what I've seen, we've got about 2,000 Macs on in our organisation. For me, I'm not too concerned just because the majority of the dodgy things that happen on our Mac computers tend to be users clicking on emails they shouldn't, and then nothing actually runs on their system, but then they go through and give information they shouldn't have to a third party. So yeah, I mean, I look, security is. I hope they can fix this, but yeah, I'm still more worried about the users, to be honest.
Yeah,
moving on.
it's the kind of thing that if I'm using, I tend to set the setting a little lower so that I can bring in third-party apps that are not in the Mac App Store because that's important to me. So I need to be more careful already. That's part of this too, is like making this foolproof for people who are like, you know what, I just want a setting that stops me from doing anything stupid. And if they think that that's going to happen and you've got this kind of vulnerability, well, that's a bad deal.
Yeah. Xiaomi released a statement that it has sold more than 70 million devices in 2015. This is short of the 100 million it originally projected, and even the revised 80 million announced later in the year. It's still a 15% rise over 2014, and Xiaomi claims it is now the top smartphone market share, or it has the top smartphone market share in China for 2015. Huawei may have a different view of the numbers, though. Huawei says it shipped more than 100 million handsets worldwide in 2015, according to the Wall Street Journal. And this battle is really, really fascinating. I mean, I loved when Huawei talked a little bit of smack at the start of last year and said, we don't make cheap phones. If you want a cheap phone, go to Xiaomi. But they're also huge in Europe. A lot of people don't know that the Honor brand is gigantic in Europe. So Huawei have done a really good job. I think Xiaomi seems to get more of the attention because it's a more interesting brand in some ways. But yeah, Huawei are the kind of a quiet giant out there.
Yeah, and the bloom is off the Xiaomi rose a little bit now after a lot of big talk of shipping 100 million phones and then not doing it, falling short by 30 million. It means that people are going to be a little more skeptical of claims from that company in the future. It is apples to oranges comparison, this 100 million to the 70 million number, though. Huawei's in many more markets. Like you say, they're in Europe. They sell a lot of phones in Europe. So a lot of that 100 million probably came from there. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if Xiaomi is right that they have a bigger market share in China than Huawei, but China is also a slowing market. So it's Xiaomi needs to hurry up and get into Brazil, get their market going full steam in India, and move into other markets. It sounds like maybe this year they may try to get into the United States and get into Latin America, in which case you might see them start to boost their sales. But yeah, they're sort of the Apple to Huawei's Android, even though both use Android in this situation, because Xiaomi has all the splash and sparkle in presentation, and Huawei just sells a load of units.
Yeah, and I do wish Xiaomi would start selling its accessories worldwide, because they are fantastic. If you do need a battery pack, and most heavy smartphone users, probably need one thrown in their bag, the Xiaomi ones are fantastic. The build quality is great, but surprisingly, there's quite a few knockoffs of Xiaomi products, so just be careful what you buy.
Yeah, check the Mi Store, which is available in the US for some accessories. Before you buy something third party. Mike Hearn, a senior developer on Bitcoin and former chair of the Bitcoin Foundation's Law and Policy Committee, took to Medium yesterday to express his opinion that he thinks Bitcoin has failed. Hearn believes Bitcoin is too centralized and resistant to change. There are only 5 people with authority to change official releases, and they are split for months now on how to deal with a capacity problem that is tied into the fact that very few people control the majority of Bitcoin mining, which creates new coins. So essentially the blockchain's getting swamped with the amount of activity on it, and to increase the capacity, they need to get the Bitcoin miners on board, but the couple of majority Bitcoin miners that basically control 50% of the mining are in China and don't see any advantage to themselves in allowing that capacity to increase. So there was Mike Hearn had led a move with Anderson to fork Bitcoin, but he couldn't get any of the miners on board to that either, so it failed. And it does sound like there are some real problems with the administration of Bitcoin itself. The technology is not a problem. It's the implementation. It's the people.
Yeah, just like that Apple story earlier. Yeah, I mean, you can have a beautiful algorithm, but I mean, there are 5 people that this article mentions. Once you get 5 people in a room, they're going to argue and they're going to have differences of opinion. And as decentralized and as kind of let the code do all the talking, as the idea of Bitcoin suggests it is, people always mess that up.
Yeah, and it does sound like the split of the 5 people has to do with the mining. And it's the mining where I think they didn't anticipate how consolidated it would become. So what's happened is you have to have a lot of servers to make Bitcoin mining pay off, because you have to crunch a lot of numbers to earn a coin. And a lot of these miners basically decided to just throw in their lots with each other and then eventually throw in their lots with organizations that are doing mining. So it's not one person doing all the mining, but it's one person who has the money to pay for a lot of servers and then is willing to sign up a bunch of other people who donate their processor cycles in order to get a cut of the share of any Bitcoins that they mine. And Hearn says, like, this is not a sustainable situation right now.
Fascinating. I still don't really understand any of that, but fascinating. Facebook has hired Bertelsmann Business Services unit Avato to monitor and delete hate speech posts in Germany. According to German weekly Der Spiegel, Avato has hired around 100 people for the job. Facebook rules restrict bullying, harassment, and threatening language. In November, prosecutors in Hamburg began investigating whether Facebook violates that country's law against promoting hate speech.
This is really interesting to me because you talk about humans being the problem and algorithms that are supposed to run themselves. Facebook has operated with the idea that we're a safe harbor. You say whatever you want. We have rules. If anyone sees someone breaking the rules, report it. We'll look at it. And that hasn't been fast enough of a process for Germany. So Germans have been taking issue with it. There have been lots of other Europeans taking issue with it. And Facebook is trying to speed up the process, which requires a lot of bodies, which Facebook doesn't want to bring on the payroll, so they outsource it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think this seems to be the big story of the year, really, when Twitter is having the same issues with hate speech on its platform, because I guess so many other parts of the world don't necessarily share that idea that all speech can be free. That sometimes, certain things need to be looked at as hate speech or defined that way.
It's the in the United States, our free speech culture is such that you have to tolerate speech that you don't like, and that the idea is freedom of speech applies to speech that you don't agree with or don't like, but as long as it doesn't actually it doesn't incite behavior. It's just an opinion. It's fine. And in Germany right now, because of the incidents on New Year's Eve, because of the ongoing immigration issue, mostly coming out of Syria, but other parts of the world as well, there's a lot more attention on things like hate speech and what actually constitutes incitement and what should be allowed. And it's got a different culture of freedom of speech to begin with. It's never been nearly as free as the United States has allowed it. So I think a lot of Americans look at this and see it much differently than someone in Germany sees it. BizTech Africa reports submarine cable operator Seacom is providing 20 megabits per second service to incubation hubs Hive, Colab, and Outbox in Uganda. Seacom began supporting innovation hubs in Kenya back in 2012. They've done some others in Uganda starting in 2014. And the EAC, which is an intergovernmental organization, the East African Community, has mandated that more than 80% of its member nations' population have internet access by 2030. So Seacom is taking part in that to provide these innovation hubs some decent connections.
This is fantastic. I can't wait to see how the internet changes when more of the world is on it. This is going to be great. The European Union privacy regulators will meet in Brussels on February 2nd to agree to a new mechanism to allow personal data transfers with the US. The US submitted proposals this week. I don't know why I read that wrong. The 15-year-old Safe Harbor framework was declared invalid by the European Court of Justice on October 6th. And once again, everything is repeating here. It's really interesting to see American points of view rubbing up against the European Union here.
And in this particular case, it's up to the European Union Committee to determine if that proposal is sufficient. They've done a lot of negotiating, so I would imagine they're at a point where the proposal has been designed to be accepted. But then even after they accept it, it is likely to get tested in the court again, and then you'll see if it holds up. Finally, a musical called Nerds will open April 21st at the Longacre Theater in New York City. It's a comedy that tells the story of the rivalry of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates in musical form. It will, of course, feature on-stage holograms, because why wouldn't it? And the audience will have an app to allow them to interact with each other and the stage. Tickets are available now at telecharge.com with preview showings beginning March 31st. I must go. Peter, will you meet me in New York City?
I will meet you in New York City for this. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to have to go and then just cringe the entire way through it. I'm not necessarily. I don't have a lot of confidence when the world of comedy turns to technology. I mean, Silicon Valley is fantastic, but there are very few shows between Silicon Valley and how nerds are generally presented.
I mean, did you ever see Pirates of Silicon Valley? The Anthony
I
Michael
did.
Hall?
Yeah.
So I'm imagining that.
Yeah,
in
that's
musical
already
form.
a comedy. You're right. So I don't know why they're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's just making that into a musical form. I hope there's a lot. I hope there's a song about open and closed platforms, about ripping off Xerox, like this.
Yeah, that's what Xerox did it first. That could be great.
All right, that, my friends, is a must-see and part of our new continuing lifestyle and arts coverage on Daily Tech News Show. Hey, thanks for letting us know about stories. It really helps us put the show together. Get in there and vote on our subreddit to let us know what you want us to talk about. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the headlines. All right, so Foursquare CEO Dennis Crowley is stepping down to become executive chairman of the board. COO Jeff Gluck, who started just in 2014 with Foursquare, will become the new CEO. He was previously CEO of Skyfire, which is now owned by Opera, and he co-founded a travel site called Site59.com, which is now owned by Travelocity. So this is a guy, when he's involved with companies, they often end up getting acquired. So maybe that's in someone's mind somewhere. Also, CRO Steven Rosenblatt is becoming president. The company just raised $45 million of Series E funding. That's valuing itself at about $400 million less than the last round, where they were valued at around $650 million. So they've taken a big hit on valuation. However, they say, hey, we've got 50 million active users on Swarm and Foursquare. We have a thriving location data-based advertising business. We're selling consumer behavior data to places like Twitter, and we have 60 million business locations in our database. In fact, Waze, the Google-owned navigation app, uses the Foursquare database to determine locations. Adam Lashinsky, writing on Fortune, was talking about how he was discouraged from checking in on Foursquare when he was visiting Apple researching a book back in 2011 because so many eyes were on Foursquare. They didn't want people to know who was coming and going at Apple. And he points out that that momentum has fallen away. He would not expect that to be a big concern these days. So the question is, Peter, what keeps the momentum of a service like this? When Foursquare launched in 2009, it was all the hotness. Now, we've seen plenty of things get hot, and within 2 years, they're gone. Or within 2 years, they've declined, or they're only available in a particular market where they've succeeded. But Foursquare kept that momentum for a while, and then it just kind of slowly faded. But they still got 50 million active users. I still have it on my phone and use it. It's kind of in this mushy middle between, well, there's the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world, and then there's the Friendsters and the Plurks of the world. And so what makes, I mean, there's one question like, what makes a successful company, but what makes us continue to use things like this over time?
I don't know. Actually, that I want to get back to that. Actually, can a social network survive in kind of the middle class of social networks? Like, there's your Foursquares and your Twitters and your Facebooks that are the real rich companies out there. But yeah, is there room for a middle class kind of company? Anyway, I don't really know. Like, I mean, Foursquare for me, I love it so much as a story, just because it's so weird. Like you said, that 2009 launch at South by Southwest, it was such a darling of the internet for a little while there, and then people forget that it fought off clones from Google and Facebook. To be able to pull that off, to see Facebook and Google clone your service and still come out the other end is pretty amazing. And yet, yeah, now it just seems to have languished, and I guess it was really the split for the people I know who were active Foursquare users. It was that split of the app into Foursquare and Swarm last year, or the year before maybe, that really seemed to kind of ruin the momentum a little bit. And I feel for them, because I kind of feel that this is where it becomes a cautionary tale for other social networks out there, that I understand why they did that, and I think I do. I think the reason they probably split the app into Swarm and Foursquare was, for a lot of people, the idea of checking in was either kind of pointless and silly or creepy, and so they didn't want to have to do that to be part of the Foursquare experience. So I can see, like, Foursquare would have thought, all right, well, we need to split these off so that the people who don't want to check in have this app that we can start selling to them, and so that they were looking at this bigger market that they could possibly get and take on Yelp and things like that. But by doing that, they've kind of marginalized their key audience, and that's why I think it's really fascinating, and that's why I especially think it's something that Twitter should pay very close attention to, because it feels to me like, when it comes to Twitter chasing, say, celebrities and chasing news and moments, and all of these new features are all designed for the casual Twitter user, the casual lurker, or the really Moments is designed for people who don't even have a Twitter account, who see how Twitter is reported by other news outlets. To focus so much on people who don't use your product, because that's where all the eyeballs are, at the expense of the people who do use your product, I find that that's a really strange and bad move for a company, a social network, to make. I mean, I just kind of feel that, of course, you're going to make all your money. I ran a forum back in the day as well, and you're going to make all of your money from the lurkers, the eyeballs that the lurkers bring in, looking at your forum or your platform or whatever it is. But you're only going to make money off those eyeballs if you have a key group of people who are constantly producing content for you.
And you've got two really solid business ideas here. One is what you're describing, making money off the eyeballs. And that's why they pulled Foursquare into becoming a restaurant recommendation app or a retail recommendation app, is they wanted to sell ads to those eyeballs and all the people looking. And they said, well, let's make Swarm more true to the roots of Foursquare, which was dodgeball, which was an idea of, hey, we're all at this club, come meet us over there. And the problem was, I was using Foursquare just as a log, basically, to be like, I went here, I went here, I went here, and this is what I thought of it. When you split them apart, now neither one does what I was using it for. I have to use two different apps. And I get what they're doing with Swarm, which is we can come up with consumer behavior and sell that, and they're selling that to Twitter, and they're selling it to Waze, and checking in, and how many people check in. They have 65 million businesses in there. That's all valuable. But that is the harder thing to do, because it requires, as you say, interaction. It requires active participation, not just eyeballs anymore. And that's the kind of thing that's likely to decline more in time unless you keep it fresh. And that brings me back to this idea of you've got the things that flare hot and flame out, right? But if they don't flame out, they tend to stick around for a long time. I think Yahoo is a great example of that. It's something that got big, was useful, and now it's cruising largely on its momentum that it built up in the past. And then we have something like Twitter, which is starting to look like it could become a Yahoo at some point. Like, people are going to keep using it because they've always used it, but it's having a hard time growing. Whereas Facebook pushed through that. They figured out how to go right into the stratosphere. Google figured out how to go in the stratosphere. And Foursquare is having a hard time navigating, like, how do you stop yourself from becoming MySpace, which is not dead, but is sort of moribund, or even worse, Friendster, which put itself on pause in June. It's not dead, technically, but it's not alive either. And I look at Snapchat as a great example of a recent company that has figured out how to keep that beach ball in the air. So at first it was just the novelty of messages that go away, but they have changed slowly and continually provided new cool features. Sometimes they anger their core audience for a bit, which is what Facebook did too. So maybe that's important to the evolution. And yet now more people are using it because they're like, oh, well, now I can tell a story, but it's not as much pressure as Instagram where it lasts forever, but it's a little more in depth than Twitter because I get to do a video and I've got these fun filters, and they're figuring their way forward. Foursquare right now, I would like to use it as a recommendation app, but I forget to use it as a recommendation app. And that reminds me of Bing. Bing has a wonderful location recommendation engine in it. It's actually better than Foursquare. It's fantastic. It used geolocation really well. Nobody uses it. And it's not because it's not a good application. It's because it just doesn't have the mind share. So and I guess that brings it back is like, how do you keep that mind share going? And can you exist, as you mentioned, like with the middle class mind share, or do you have to constantly be shooting for the Facebook level?
Yeah. I really don't know how to answer it. I mean, and I guess Foursquare don't know how to answer it either.
Yeah, right.
I do think Snapchat is actually a great example because they did start with something that was almost laughably simple, and I feel that, and the original Foursquare was laughably simple as well. It was just I'm here, I'm checking in, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so it's that evolution as you grow your product. Of course you're going to anger people along the way, but I think the people you need to look at the most are the core group of people, and when they, like you said, you used to use it as a logging kind of platform for yourself, not so much the social stuff. And to be honest, that's how I use it too. And I think that had they actually talked to their majority users, they probably might have found that was the case. Because you can actually subscribe to your Foursquare feed. This is so nerdy, but you can subscribe to your Foursquare feed in like Google Calendar, and that's kind of the main reason I still tend to use it these days, is so I can just kind of look back and see where I've been. And when I was in New York, what was that restaurant I went to that I really loved? It was that one. And be able to quickly find it that way. So I like it just as a data nerd. That's why I really enjoyed the platform. And I think a lot of the really active users who, like they're not where you're going to get your growth, but those active users are going to create a good. I'm making up numbers here, but like I reckon those, it's the 80-20 rule. I reckon the 20% of your really core audience make like 80% of your content, and I just kind of feel that Foursquare forgot that somehow and forgot to take those people along with them when they split up their apps. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if bringing the two apps back together would help. But yeah, I really, it's a bummer because I mean, Foursquare's continue to do really interesting things. I think they've, Apple Maps are now using their data, which has improved so much, the data of Apple Maps in Australia, because Yelp never really took off here. It was so late to the market that it was just no one cared anymore by the time it launched. And Foursquare just recently have started translating local reviews as well. So when you're traveling, it's a much better. I just used it in Germany last year, and it was fantastic to see local reviews of little places as I wandered around. So it's still
we used it in Italy the same
about.
way. It was really helpful for that.
And so I still think there's a place for it. Is it on your front screen? Is on your front home screen though?
No, Swarm is. And the reason Swarm is on my front screen is because when I check in, when I remember to check in, I want to check in fast. And so I used to have Foursquare there, and I used to use the recommendation engine more often because it was there. But I replaced it with Swarm because it's more practical, which means I don't use the Foursquare recommendation engine as often.
Yeah, which is a damn shame. And I think, I don't know, if they can somehow manage to make reviewing places as kind of easy and as fun as they used to make check-ins, maybe that's what they could do to improve the Foursquare app itself. But yeah, I do think that a check-in button needs to come back to that main Foursquare app. So like you said, you can move Foursquare back to the front page.
Yeah, and I feel like this may be an example, and it may not be, but it may be an example of a common thing that I've seen in places that I've worked where the monetization starts to lead the product. And you start to rationalize, well, I know the users want that, but it'll be fine if we don't give them that because we have this monetization plan that'll work great and they'll stick around and we can make money. And in content companies is where I've seen it, where you have great content ideas, but the only ones that get traction are the ones that the people who are selling the product think are good because they can sell them, and your content suffers as a result. It's not very cohesive. And that could be what happened here is they're like, ooh, but we really want to be a recommendation engine because we think we can sell a lot of ads as that. So let's push our users to use us that way. And the users just were like, nah, we're not doing it that way.
Absolutely. You might be able to hear Penny, my baby, crying in the background there. She also has a Foursquare account, and it's one of those weird little things that, like, she has no other social network account, but I created a little Foursquare account for her just because when I'm at work, I like seeing that her and my wife are checking into like parks and things.
That's so cute.
It's a really
cute
little
personal
thing.
history of where she's been.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've still got a really soft spot for Foursquare. I do hope that they can get themselves out of this funk, and like you said, maybe like just being in that kind of middle class of apps that say Flickr seems to be in these days, where they were once great and now they're still loved, but they're never going to grow. Maybe you can survive like that, but I really do have a soft spot for Foursquare, so I do hope they can work this out.
All right, let's get to our pick of the day. It comes from Wes in Nome, Sweet Nome. That's what he wrote. Says, thanks for all your hard work. Well, thank you, Wes. I'm so excited about the direction of the show, and I wanted to share something I learned today. It's not really a pick, but I was unaware of it until I did some investigating. I wanted to up my patron support to help with day 6, but couldn't quite move up to the next level. On Patreon, I thought I could only give the prescribed reward levels, but much to my surprise, I found that I could edit my donation amount to whatever I wanted. I upped my support by $1, and while it didn't move me to a new reward level, I was still happy to give a little more. Just wanted to pass this information along to my fellow audience members. I'm probably the only one who is confused about this, but maybe my experience could help someone else. And obviously, we would like you to apply that to DTNS, but any Patreon support that you give on any Patreon, you can do that. You can even put it in cents. You can up it by like 5 cents if you want. It doesn't matter, and every little bit helps.
That's awesome, Wes. I did not know that. So thank you so much, Wes.
Yeah. And if you're like, what's day 6? Well, the idea is to rope Peter Wells into doing an episode of Daily Tech News Show from Australia once a week, which would come out our Sunday. So it'd be a 6th day of DTNS. It'd come out on his Monday and give you another perspective from his side of the world. So that's what we're hoping to get to. And we're more than 30% of the way there.
Fantastic.
Keep them coming. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A few messages of the day to get through here. Manu Dev heard us discussing Netflix's announcement of making geo-unblocking more difficult. He says the only good thing about that announcement was that Netflix is working towards offering customers everywhere the same content. I'm using Netflix from January 8th when it first became available in India, and I'm truly disappointed with the content they have. Although they do have some good TV shows, their movie collection available in India is a joke. For example, the sci-fi and fantasy genre has 32 movies available. Thrillers genre has 26 movies. Hot Bollywood, the independent and indie movies, they don't have any foreign movies available in India either. Just English and Hindi movies. And at this point, I have more movies on my 2 terabyte hard disk than all of Netflix. So I know that Australia actually is a little bit ahead of the world in this case, Peter, because you've had Netflix for a little longer, and yet you also had a long history of using geo-unblockers to use Netflix before it came to Australia. What was your take about it?
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion. I still actually have a geo blocker in place that I rarely use though. It's one that it was an annual membership, so it clicked over one day, and I realized, oh well, I've got it for another year. But yeah, I mean, for me, Netflix, I tend to these days watch the original programming that comes out on Netflix, and so it is a bummer. I have seen the difference between the US library and our library, and we are definitely shortchanged on many shows. But I don't really mind all that much, just because I'm generally using Netflix for Orange Is the New Black and Making a Murderer and that kind of stuff. So I think as long as Netflix can keep pumping that stuff out, and they seem to be, then that will be what keeps them the darlings of the internet. But yeah, I do. I also do think that this is a lot of Netflix just saying what their partners want them to say. I again don't think that this is going to make a hell of a lot of difference to people who are using geo blockers, but we'll see. We'll see.
And then Simon, who is British but lives in Belgium, was complaining that on his regional Netflix, they only carry a limited set of subtitles, Dutch and French. He says, I can read Dutch and French, but too slowly to be able to enjoy the images at the same time. He says the effect is culturally to punish people that move around Europe. So it's another spin on that region locking, is not just what's available, but in what language is it available in your locality. And I think it's going to take Netflix a while to build up these catalogs. I remember when they launched in the US, they just had movies. They had no TV shows. It was a very limited set of movies. So anywhere they launch, it takes a while to get those license agreements. And like you say, I think what they're focusing on is as they make new shows, they will make them available in all of their regions at once. Yeah. And so that will help unify the different Netflixes, even if some of the back catalogs are different.
Absolutely.
Joe the pilot wrote in reminiscing about the 1985 through 95 cars that hadn't quite turned to the car port and hadn't quite turned fully fuel injected. Does anyone remember blinking light car computer codes? Does that sound familiar? You would turn the key to the on position, not start, and then off, repeat 2 more times, leaving the key on, and then watch the battery light blinking, separated by short and long pauses. For instance, blink, 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 blink was a code 23, and then you'd have to go look up what code 23 was. Joe says, I had an old Chrysler that kept giving me the same 3 sets of codes, which meant battery, and fuel flow, or something stupid, and didn't help at all. Who would have thought that useless crap would someday evolve into self-driving cars, he said, and he gave us a link to some sample codes as well.
I know this totally passed me by, but then I drive a 2001 Toyota Corolla, so I'm not really on the cutting edge of car technology.
You're not old enough to still have the codes, which is good. But yeah, I kind of vaguely remember my dad having to do that with those blinking lights. And then Dave and I had an email exchange after he recalled hearing that one time, a long time ago, somebody said that General Motors was the largest manufacturer of computers in the world. So I dug up the fact that GM posted 7.2 million cars sold in the first 9 months of 2015. So you can guess they probably sold around 10, 11 million for 2015. Lenovo, for comparison, sold 15 million computers in Q4. So I sent that to Dave, and then Dave said, well, let me figure out how many computers would be in each car, right? Because a GM car might have more than one computer. So he called a customer of his who has a shop over in Pacific, Missouri, and that guy said that some newer cars have about 25 computers that do all the different stuff and communicate using the CAN bus, probably to cut down on wiring so they don't have to all go into one computer. So that would be 180 million computers if it was true of every car GM sold in the first 9 months of 2015. So I don't know if that's how you count it. I guess it matters how you define a computer. But it was an interesting conversation about the fact that car companies are manufacturing computers. They're not making chips, they're not foundries, but they're definitely putting these things together. And it played off that email we had the other day calling cars just big driving case mods.
Which is so true, yeah. I mean, and I do think that that's why I probably will start paying attention to cars in the future, because I didn't really care about cars up until now, but now that they're becoming more and more computers, now I'm interested.
Well, thank you, Peter Wells, for being interested in being on the show. He writes for the Sydney Morning Herald, podcaster on reckoner.au. You can follow him on Twitter, twitter.com/Peter Wells. I know I keep using the old Twitter address when I @reply you. I got to get out of that habit, but I know you have both. So go follow him, Peter Wells on Twitter. Anything else going on? And we talk about day 6. Anything in particular you want to let folks know about?
No, just yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter. I'll link to whatever I'm up to there. If you do want to read my latest thing, it's about separating kind of work and life on a smartphone, so that you don't go crazy with work notifications in your time off, which is something I think a lot of people need to kind of deal with now that they're carrying around a work phone at all times. So yeah, check that out. That will be linked to somewhere on my Twitter account, and you'll also get very cute baby photos.
Len Peralta has been busy illustrating the show,
Yeah.
and it is a strong looking Foursquare you've got there.
Well, you know what? I used to be a big active Foursquare user. I still use Swarm from time to time, and I'll use Foursquare as well just to rate things, but it doesn't seem to make much sense. But I think that the real issue with checking in, this is actually based on a true story that happened to me, that I became the mayor of Arby's. It made me feel like a total loser. It was bad. So I think that's the real issue with checking in, and that's what
They make a damn fine roast beef sandwich at Arby's.
You know, they do. I have to say, they have the meats. That's true. But you know, you don't want to be called the mayor of Arby's. You get like a hat or something.
Foursquare knows you better than you know yourself. Sometimes it's true.
Yeah, so I think that's the real issue with Foursquare. So that's the image I drew today. It's up in the online store right now if you're interested in it. And also, by the way, I don't know if anybody knew this, but if you back my Patreon at the $12 level, you can get every one of these images I draw for DTNS as a digital file. And it's a great way.
Look at you tweeting that as you're talking. It's so smooth.
I'm very smooth. I'm very smooth. But yeah, it's available, and they're available digitally as well. And at my online store, you can also get every single image I've drawn for DTNS as either singles or even instant art collections. You get 10 of the best ones I've done for the past 2 years. So lots of DTNS stuff there. You should check it out.
Even just to go look at this, like this is a really good one. This is a funny one. You got to check it out, lenperaltastore.com. Thanks to all of our supporters, dailytechnewsshow.com/support. If you get value out of the show, we just ask you to go there and figure out how to give a little bit of value back. In fact, if you're backing us at the $5 a month level, that's 25 cents a show. You get access to the treasure chest. And Rich from lovely Cleveland has been putting together a best of the post show that he throws in there every week. So if you're a patron and you haven't checked that out yet, go check it out. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. It's 512-593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Monday is a holiday in the U.S., so headlines only. Back with Patrick Beja on Tuesday. Talk to you both of those days.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Bang.
Bang.
Biggity bang.
Woo!
Good show. What should we call it?
I have ideas. Oh, this one's complicated. It involves parentheses. Promoting play. Rise of the Xiaomi. Where the unicorns roam.
So much drama in the BTC. You don't want to go with 2 rap titles in a row. I get it.
Maybe. Self-driving Morse code. Foursquare, not the
Mama
hottest
just
game.
copyrighted from a man.
Uh-oh, I started a thing. You've become the mayor of Identity Crisis.
Where's that one? That's good.
That's all the way at the bottom. Wait, I'm hearing feedback of some kind somewhere.
Well, you're probably hearing Peter's baby.
No, I'm hearing me back somewhere.
Oh, I don't know.
The casual lurker just checked in.
The Phantom of the Operating System.
That's like the musical, right? Yeah.
Let's see. Connect to the internet at CCOM. Singacon Valley. Let's see. 4 rounded squares.
I think it should be called the mayor of Arby's.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, poor Arby's.
I kind of think so too.
I think that's it. The mayor of Arby's.
Yeah, the mayor of Arby's.
The mayor of Arby's. Oh, that was so sad. That was a true
story.
Yeah,
That's
it was
the
an
best
actual thing that happened to me at one point in my life. That's
well, and I can totally
that's
see
not
that. Like, if that happened, like, I go to Arby's, have a roast beef sandwich. I'm not feeling great about myself, but like, nobody knows, you know. And then you check in, and you're like, oh shit, I'm amazing. What have I become?
There's a Louis C.K. bit about Cinnabon that's very similar, actually.
Well, and I used to go to McDonald's when I worked at CNET with Veronica because she was the only other one who would keep the secret. Like, it was a mutually assured destructive pact.
I can't even eat that anymore. I tried. I can't. Hey, so I made a spreadsheet.
Yay!
Another one?
Another one. I know, I made a spreadsheet today. I made a spreadsheet called Let's Talk About Star Wars.
Aha!
All the amazing emails that we've been getting about theories, like people writing in with their theories and putting them in a safe space.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
And this is, I don't think you're going to like this suggestion. Let me just
Does it
say.
involve putting them in a Slack?
No, I think we should open up that the way Night Attack opens up their spreadsheets for the audience. I think we should open up that spreadsheet for people to curate and put their own theories and organize it. And
I'm for it.
If we get enough people, it probably won't turn into a nightmare.
Yeah, I'm still holding out for somebody to make a nice like graphical thing where you can vote on theories. But yeah, this probably should be. But it could be open in view only, or you mean like open?
No, open for editing. Or maybe we give a few trusted people the keys and allow them to invite other people. That may be a smarter way to do it. But
hey, did you sign the petition to get George Lucas to direct episode 2?
What?
What?
Did you not hear that?
Yeah.
There is a petition by fans who've started. They think that the I forget his name, the director of episode 2 is not the right feel. They want to bring George Lucas back to home and right the ship.
And right the ship?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
this
what they
is getting
said.
Interesting.
Yeah, 21,000 signatures. So there's 21,000 people that believe that. I mean,
Ryan Johnson, is that Looper guy name?
Yeah. He's episode 8.
He's doing. I thought he was doing the Rogue leader.
No,
Yeah, I
that's
think
Gareth
he's the-
Edwards. Well, nope.
Okay.
Gareth Edwards is Rogue One.
Yeah.
Colin
Johnson
Trevorrow is
episode
9,
8,
right?
and Colin
the
Trevorrow is 9.
director of 2
Okay.
directed some really good Breaking Bad episodes. Some of the best
Yeah,
episodes.
he
of
did
Breaking
Looper, he did Brothers
Brick.
Bloom, and
Rick.
Yeah, Brick is fantastic. Yeah,
Oh.
see that if you haven't.
I was like, no, his name's Ryan.
You know what? Here's the
Sorry,
thing.
a little slow.
Here's the thing. I just don't think. Well, I'm not going to hijack this post show. This is a technology show, and I'm
Post show
making
is
it.
whatever we want it to be.
Okay, good. Let's talk about Star Wars.
It's now becoming episode 1.5 of Let's Talk About Star Wars.
No, we should do that. Where's Garrett? Unless we have Garrett, we can't talk. No, but in all seriousness, I think George Lucas has had his time with Star Wars, and he gave it up. And if he wants to direct some sort of weird, out there short film about all the things he was gonna do, far, far away from this particular storyline, then that's fine.
Well,
Well, he does
yeah.
direct. He does make stuff on his weird little ranch all the time. He just
know.
never releases any of it.
I know.
So he probably does have some weird version of. Well, actually, no. He that's the problem. George hates Star Wars. Like, he hates what it did to his life.
Yeah.
So, which is such a bizarre way to look at the world. But yeah, it's
Well, but he also made.
He still thinks that he would be
money.
making like art house films if it wasn't for Star Wars.
Well,
he can still make art house films, yo. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think he hates Star Wars in so much that it ran away from him, like in a way that
Yeah.
it's like building something and then having it taken away from you.
But
Even
it
if
wasn't
it's a
taken
relationship.
away. I think that makes it even more interesting is he sold it.
Yeah.
He
No, I don't even
decided
mean the
to
Disney
part
thing. I'm not
ways.
talking about the Disney aspect.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
it was
the
Empire.
fandom.
It was already. I mean, everyone. Sorry to nerd out, but
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's just that, like, I mean, everyone universally says that Empire's the best one, and all the stories
nothing
were
to
that
do with it.
basically, yeah, that like everyone was just ignoring him on set, and the Lawrence Kasdan did all of the great writing of that. So I kind of feel that, like, I mean, he started with a great idea, and
Well, yeah.
by the first sequel, he was already on the back of the trailer, I guess. So,
Right.
poor little guy.
And that's the other thing too. He had 3 movies. He had the chance to bring it back, and we saw what it did. We saw what he was able to do as a director and a writer. Hey.
Let's talk about midichlorians.
I will say the one aspect that always sticks with me with the prequels that you can tell is George's influence is that all the worlds have a very unique and very kind of profound character that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I don't want to talk about the Force Awakens, but it's one thing I've always liked about Lucas is that all the worlds have personalities. Like they are characters in of themselves.
That was one comment that I heard from a friend of mine, that he couldn't get a grasp of the environment, which in the new movies. And I was like, well, no, actually, I felt the environments, but I know what you're saying, Roger. Coruscant is this big place, as was Bespin and all these other places.
It's a very John Ford influenced kind of cinematography's view, right? You do the big sweeping vistas that give you a sense of place, but also they give you a comparison with the characters, like how small they are or their place within it. And I mean, like Lucas says, it is a western. It's a wagon train in space.
Yeah.
And so a lot of
I think his relationship with Star Wars is definitely love-hate. Like, it definitely changed his life, but yeah, he even described it as saying it's like breaking up with a girlfriend. Like, you don't ride by her house anymore. You don't see what she's up to.
I think that's a really interesting metaphor on his part, because he said we should see other people, essentially, and then she left him.
Yeah,
and it's one of those like, we should see other people. Oh wait, you're seeing other people without me? Oh crap.
Yeah, now he's just making like creepy Facebook posts.
Yeah,
it's complicated.
Talking to his old friend Charlie.
Yeah, but yeah, that petition though, that big thumbs down on that.
I do think there are issues. I mean, I only saw the Force Awakens once, so I should go back and change that. I should see it a couple more times. I know, right? But I did see like a midnight screening as well, so I was kind of half asleep by the end of that. But I did find it like hard to work out who the hell the Resistance was, and didn't the good guys win at the end of Jedi? Like, we saw the Ewoks dance and Nub Nub and everything else. Like, shouldn't they be the guys who?
Nothing ever stays happy. I think they were. My theory is I think they were at some point. Leia was definitely involved. And there's like a whole now new refilling in of this timeline that I think is going to happen through various media. But I think what they're basically saying is, it already is. And I think what they're basically saying is, like, definitely at some point these people were involved. And then at some point Leia was like, yo, I got to step out of the official government and go handle these other people over here. And that's what she did, and I think she did that probably soon after the thing happened with the person. I'm just being
the Teddy
careful.
Roosevelt of the rebellion.
Yeah, I think
too slim, isn't she, for that?
Oh, now.
Wasn't Teddy Roosevelt pretty heavy, or is that Taft?
Are you fat shaming Teddy Roosevelt?
Fat shaming Teddy and Taft?
Which one was the
cool,
one that
Roger.
required that huge bathtub installed in the White House?
That was Taft.
Yeah.
Stop fat shaming presidents.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about his health.
Well, he died.
Don't make fun of old white men on this show, I'll tell you. What. Save that for the Oscars.
I resemble that remark.
Taft. Ooh, everyone sees. So if it was Taft, I wonder if they made. So Taffy isn't based after his name.
No.
Would it be great though? Taffy?
We went so far, so fast.
I think
Oh.
Taft is from Ohio. I think you can see Taft's bathtub that he got stuck in
You
somewhere.
can?
I think so.
Oh
I don't
my
know.
God. It's not Illinois.
It's probably a prototype of a jacuzzi or a hot tub.
P.S. Side note for video viewers: Ellie has a really magnificent side eye. Like she just side eyes the hell out of these last few minutes. She was just like, I really like that. It's very expressive side eye.
She likes dancing too.
Yeah.
Oh, expose your
magic,
kid to
dance,
music
magic,
early.
Jump, magic, jump.
Yes, that's true.
Kids dig it.
Yeah, my youngest, he came out of the womb like bobbing his head because we used to go see the boys play music in clubs, and he probably heard the drums and stuff like that. So he's got a really good
You
sense.
used to go clubbing?
No, the boys at the time they were in high school. They were playing like rock offs and stuff. So we would all, when Nora was pregnant with him, we would all go and loud music. And
I just like the idea of you and Nora clubbing.
Yeah.
While she's pregnant.
No, Nora would do the clubbing. I would probably stay home watch that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I've got to step in there. Actually, I've got to take some time off because at the moment the only way to settle Penelope when she's really angry is playing Justin Bieber to her. So I think my wife is she's not raising our kid right.
Yeah, you need to stop spending so much time writing articles about work-life balance.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Start living it, man. Start living it.
Is it just a pup say sorry?
That's the one. That's the one.
I need to go wash my ears.
Oh man, I that reminds me of I would listen to this song when I would run, so now I know the Justin Bieber song because it would just kind of pop up on my running playlist, and so I was like, now I know that album, but it's not bad. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, you have to listen to it with Selena's album to get both sides of the story.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I should.
They actually answer each other in songs. It's kind of
that's right.
It's like watching a
that's
bickering couple.
That's a great concept.
That's
I'm waiting for the
I'm going to
remix.
log off here and get ready for my weekend. But I want to let everybody know that I'll let you know how it goes next Friday. I'm kind of unofficially running a 5K this Sunday.
Oh, congratulations! That's awesome.
I've been training for 8 weeks. It's not an official 5K, like I didn't pay to get into it and run it and stuff like that. But I'm going to see
You're
if
going to run alongside it?
No. It's like on the app, in the Nike running app. It's like 8 weeks, and then the very last thing
I see. So you're reaching your 5K.
Exactly.
Nice.
So
That's great.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know how it goes. It's pretty exciting.
When are you doing that?
Sunday.
Sunday. I will run with you.
Oh, nice.
I will run 5K on Sunday.
Oh, that's cool. That's excellent. Yeah.
And I'll run on my Nike app.
Have you seen that? Have you seen what I'm doing on that Nike app? It's crazy.
No, I gotta check it out. I haven't looked.
I've run like almost 40 miles this month.
That's fantastic.
It's crazy. I'm crazy. I don't know how this happened to me, but it's exciting. But I wanted to humble brag about that. So
don't just humble brag. Brag it up.
Braggadocio.
That's exciting.
Drop the humble.
This is probably the best shape I've been in my entire life. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's why you look 15 years old.
Exactly.
I lost 10 pounds. So since November, beginning of November.
I hope you don't find them.
Wow.
I lost my croissant, and I don't know where it went.
That's weird. It's a strange thing for me to get used to, but it's exciting.
Yeah. Cool, man.
All right.
Well,
guys,
on that note, we're done. Bye, everybody. We'll see
I'll run with you on Sunday.
Tuesday.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Alpha Geek Radio.